Hi everyone, hello English readers, and welcome to Lydie's Book Club August Live Read Along. I'm Lydie Bureau and I'm an English teacher in France. I'm also the founder of Lydie's Book Club, in which I host live readings of adaptations of classics of English literature and contemporary novels. Each month, we read and explore a different book for all levels of English. And once a week, I meet the members of the book club in a live workshop via Zoom to discuss the chapters of the book that we're currently reading. In this book club, I also tend to prioritize books that are written by women. And this month, we are reading the contemporary novel Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. This novel is the debut novel of Julia Armfield, and we're reading it in its integral text. So that means that this level of English is C1 plus minimum for you to have in English. So you need to have an advanced level in English to be able to enjoy the reading of the book. So if you would like to know more about the novel, what it's about, and about the author, Julia Armfield's work, I invite you to listen to the podcast episode 23, an introduction to Julia Armfield and Our Wives Under the Sea, which is available on this YouTube channel, but also on Spotify, the podcast, so Lydie's Book Club podcast called Read in English. And today, it's our fourth live reading session, and because I had a technical issue on Friday, I'm re-recording this live reading today on Tuesday, and Tuesday the 20th of August. And usually there is a live Instagram. I'm doing the live Instagram simultaneously, but today I'm just re-recording it because I've actually done the live last Friday. So yeah, that's why this live reading will be a little bit different than usual. There are going to be less interaction, of course, than usually. In the coming weeks, there are going to be two more weeks of Instagram live readings, and all the dates and time of the reading schedule can be found on my website or on Instagram account. You just click on the link in the description of this video. And also you can rewatch all the live readings on this YouTube channel and also on the Spotify podcast, Read in English. And in addition to these 10 live reading sessions, I'm going to host three live workshops based on the novel, so that the members of the book club will be able to improve their speaking skills and share their views on the novel. And these live workshops are hosted on Zoom, so you have to subscribe to the book club to be part of the conversation. And you can find all the information and dates of the workshop by clicking on the link in the description as well. We've done one live workshop so far. So if you want to be able to attend to the next two, then subscribe to the book club. Also, I'm pleased to announce that you can now purchase the live workshop of the three-part live workshop of Daisy Jones and the Six, which is our July live read-along. And it's also C1 plus level advanced of English. And you can purchase the live workshop on my website. Just click on, follow the link, and you'll be asked to create your own login, which will give you a private access to the videos, and you just watch the video at your own pace and whenever you want. So that's for me now. So today we are reading pages 59 to 71. of Our Wives Under the Sea. And before I get started with the live reading, with the reading, sorry, I'm going to do a quick recap, yes, of the chapter that we read. So the recap of session 4, which were pages, so we read pages 37 to 58. So let me do the quick recap of that, these couple pages. I love to make notes in my book. Look at this, so that it helps me. And if that can be any use for you, any tips for live readings, you can just comment as well if you want to get more tips or any, I don't know, recommendation, whatever. So this is how I do, and this way I can quickly go through the text just by looking at my notes and quickly recap the main information in the text from the session. So let's go. So at this point in the novel, we have an account from Miri of the going away party that the center organized before Leah and the crew and the other members of the mission leave. So at this point, Miri doesn't really pay attention to her feeling, the kind of inner feelings that she's got at this point, because it's only now reflecting on this event that she realizes that she had a strange feeling at this point during this party, a strange feeling that something wasn't as usual, but she didn't really pay attention to that. And why would it be any different from usually? Because it's not the first time that Leah went on the mission, and nothing could what could be different from all the other many times that Leah went on the mission. And they had an argument before attending the evening, but they quickly made up and kind of made peace and moved on from the argument that they had. And actually, Miri doesn't even remember what was the point of disagreement. And at this event, we meet Jelka. I mean, Miri evokes the presence of this woman called Jelka, who is the character that Leah mentions in her memories of the event. You know, when there are chapters called Leah, and in those chapters, it's Leah talking, reminiscing the event in the mission. The sequence of events of the incident in the mission. So, and she mentioned the presence of Jelka. And in this account of her, Miri dresses a portrait of Jelka that is quite not a very favorable one. It seems like she is not very well. Jelka is not very appreciative of the effort that the center did about about organizing this event for the crew before they go. So it seems for her like people are just being hypocrites, and she doesn't seem to enjoy really the party and being the center of the intention, along with Leah and the rest of the crew. So yeah, she feels a little bit weird, and Leah and Miri look at her as if, in a kind of a strange way. Why is she talking like that? And yeah, they find her a little bit weird, or have a sense that something is not going on well with her. Later on, we have an account of Miri talking of Miri's mother, who died. I think similarly at the same, quite at the same time of Leah being back, more or less, maybe a couple months before something. So that's not quite clear personally for me, that the order of event here. It seems to me that her mother died quite at the same time as Leah got back, and this situation in which Miri and Leah are kind of trying to navigate and sort of adapt to, makes Miri reflect on her mother and the death of her mother. And yeah, it makes her think about her mother. And we have here a portrait of a woman that was quite strong-headed and very strict, very severe on her position, and opinionated, it seems. So yeah, it's interesting also to read that she had to put her mother into a full-time hospice because she couldn't let her live on her own, because her mother insisted on staying in the house where Miri grew up, in this house close to the beach, close to the sea. Maybe not a beach, but yeah, probably close to the sea. And she in the end finally had to move out from the house. Then it's here an account in the following chapter, page 47. It's Leah talking about her father and how he taught her how to swim. So we've got here a parallel between Miri remembering the death of her mother and her relationship with her as well, and here Leah reminiscing memories from her father, and how she got into swimming and this attraction to the water and the sea. So Yeah, and also the fact that her father got her into reading these kind of these um, books from adventure and explorers like Thor Heyerdahl, who is a Norwegian adventurer and ethnographer in the 1940s. And Leah got really into his books and his work. So it seems like she admired him and was fascinated by his work. And that's probably encouraged her to do this work, to do this job, to be a marine researcher, scientist. And there is also, after that, we move on with another chapter of Miri, talking about, remember, she is constantly calling the center because she's asking something from the center. We don't know what it is exactly, but the center is always telling her that they can't help her. It needs to be Leah asking for this request. And at some point, she got really upset and she broke the landline phone, and by smashing it onto I don't know, on the counter, on the table or something. And then she had to buy a new phone because this phone belongs to the flat where they live. So it seems like they are tenants in this flat. And when you break something, of course, you have to buy it again and replace it so that if they leave the flat, then all is all is good for the landlord. So she is shopping for this new phone, to get this new landline phone, and she's with Carmen. Remember, Carmen is her best friend, Mary's best friend, and again they talk about how life is going and everything, as you should when you're with your friends. And for the first time, Miri starts to confide in Carmen, and opens up a little bit more about her, what she feels about Leah. And she tells her that she has this feeling that Leah is not back, although her body is here physically. She's here, she's there. Her mind is elsewhere. She is not fully back. And Carmen is a personality that tends to bring the topic back to herself, and she's going to and instead of listening to her and just trying to be understanding, she's always trying to compare Leah with Tom and her relationship with him with the relationship of Leah and Mary. And that is something that Miri starts to realize, and she starts reflecting on her relationship with Carmen, and the fact that she's been always the one listening to her complaints, and all the thing that was going on with Carmen's life. And now she realizes that is kind of annoyed by this dynamic between them, and she wished that Carmen was a little bit more understanding and would listen more to her. But at the same time, Carmen is a loyal friend. She is there when she wants to go out or anything, they want to meet. She is someone that is present, and doesn't let her down. So in a way, although there's some stuff that annoys that annoys a lot Miri, on the other hand, she is a loyal friend and she's there. So there's no perfect relationship, perfect friendship, and we'll see how things evolve with Carmen and Miri, but she ends up saying, when Miri was completely lost in her thoughts, and she said, "I hear you." So you're not quite sure. So Carmen says, "Oh, I hear you," after she after Miri confided in her a little bit more. But you're not really sure whether it's "I hear you," me too, I feel the same, although she's not in the same position at all, or I have experienced the same feelings, or whether it's a true "I hear you, I see you, I understand what you're saying, and I'm trying to be understanding." So it's a kind of blurry here, because then Miri, as the narrator says, "I hear you," Carmen says, reaching out to touch my arm and then changing the subject to some issues she's been having in getting her passport renewed. So again, bringing the conversation back to her own issues. So there was a little glimpse maybe of real understanding and careful listening, but it was brief in a way. So yeah, that's the little recap of session 3. So now I'm gonna start the reading of pages 59 to 71. Let's go. So Leah, chapter starts with Leah. I remember when I was 12 and I first read about the Challenger Deep. This is, or was at one point, the deepest known point of the ocean, located in the Western Pacific at one end of the Mariana Trench. In 1960, a Swiss designed submersible craft, the Trieste, was piloted down to this point, a record at the time, by the Swiss oceanographer Jacques Picard and an American naval officer named Don Walsh. The descent, which took almost 5 hours, resulted in a grand total of 20 minutes spent on the ocean floor before the two men decided to take the craft back up again. According to reports, they would have spent longer down there, but the outer window of their vessel had started to crack on descent. I read about this in one of my father's books, the name of which I no longer recall, though I remember its turquoise cover, and the illustrated submarine casting its exterior lights onto the title in an airy downward spill. I must have taken that book down from my I must have taken that book down from my father's shelf more times than he considered strictly polite, because at one point I pulled it out and found he had printed his name on the inside cover. Property of Michael Henry Frame, on long lease to his daughter Leah. There was something I loved, aged 12, about the way the book spoke so coolly of the deep ocean, not as something to be survived or conquered, but simply navigated. It made me think about the straight imperative of technology, the way anything could be constructed to solve a problem. Coffee makers make coffee, trains carry you places in a hurry, and submarines allow you to travel further than the ocean's vastness and your ill-equipped body should permit. I suppose the book spoke to the part of my imagination which still held on to the thought of the sea as something unknowledgeable, spoke to, and in a sense calmed it. I don't know that my endless reading and rereading of the book was that specifically instilled in me the desire to explore the ocean. More likely, I simply read it so much that it fell apart, and I had to go and find something else to do, like exploring the ocean. Reading was not enough. She had to act. She had to be in the action and see for herself what's in the ocean. I said to myself, okay, that's enough, and then said it again aloud to ensure I meant it. I told Jelka to stay where she was. Okay, so now it's there is a little space, so now she is talking to she's talking about the mission, what's happened during the mission. I said to myself, okay, that's enough, and then said it again aloud and to ensure I meant it. I told Jacob to stay where she was and took Matteo through to the rear chamber to assess the situation. There was little enough to be gained from doing this. Matteo had already checked every piece of equipment that could be checked and found it in fine working order. But taking a moment away from Jelka and incessant humming was frankly result enough. The rear chamber was narrow and arranged like a small galley kitchen cum study. There were lockers along the back wall, and a table with bench seating, a small sink and sideboard for food preparation, a bookshelf and a table for taking notes, a storage box shaped like a chest freezer, 2 fold-out bunks arranged one on top of the other across one wall. The craft was one of the smallest I had ever been on, resembling nothing so much as an upside-down light bulb. A light bulb designed to drop like a stone. At the base, the control deck rear chamber and wash store were sealed off from the rest of the craft in a pressurized hull. The only doors, the ones between the deck, chamber and store, and the lower hatch leading to the escape trunk. I looked around for a moment as if assessing for damage. Matteo shone a torch into the corners. I'd like a rare steak, he says, apropos of nothing. I'd like a rare steak and a drink. I looked at him, registering again the curious sensation of blandness. Yes, wellness. We were still falling, had no way of stopping, and I felt very little about this beyond a mild sense of incorrectness. A soft constriction at the back of my neck, like someone had taken hold of the flesh and pinched. I watched as Matteo made his way around the lockers, squinting into the white shaft of the torchlight, as if expecting something dreadful to emerge. He had only 3 fingers on his left hand and held the torch somewhat awkwardly in his right, with which he was still less dominant. He had told me the story once, long ago, before we both came to work for the center. We were working on a mid-sized submersible somewhere in the Arctic basin. Matteo as the chief engineer and I as part of the small team of biologists conducting species inventories and studying certain proteins present in the bloodstream of cold water fish. One night, Matteo had held his fingers out before him like a TV medium and told me how, when he was a teenager, he'd gone ice fishing with his father at Lake Simcoe, not far from the Durham region of southern Ontario. It was a 4-day drive from San Luis Obispo, California, where he had scrawled out a broadly uninterrupted childhood existence of spray can cheese and TV and bed when his mother said so. But as his father told him on the morning of their departure, nothing worth seeing is ever only walking distance away. This was baseless Californian logic at best. But Matteo still took it to heart. My dad, he once said, loved the slogan. And I bought whatever he sold. It was during his fishing trip that Matteo developed such bad frostbite that he lost significant movement and ultimately all but the cigarette fingers and thumb on his left held. I had looked at his nails, lumpy as oyster shells, black around the cuticles. I had asked him what his father had done when he'd realized what was happening, and Matteo had shaken his head at me, explained that he hadn't told him. End of the 3rd day, when I realized the skin of my hand was changing color, I just put my gloves on and used my right hand to hold the fish hook for the rest of the trip. It felt too important, you know. I didn't want to ruin it. I didn't want to ruin it. I didn't want to go just yet. We stood in a rear chamber for a long time, just looking around, unsure of what it was we were hoping to see. After a while, I registered a vague rumbling, a gentle sense of alteration in the ground beneath me, which I couldn't identify until Matteo pointed out that we were slowing down. Miri, new chapter. Yeah. I typically think it's easiest to feel warm when a part of us is cold. I lie in bed with my feet uncovered and try to feel this, chase the sensation of something up my leg and lose it. It's getting on for autumn. And Leah has been back nearly 2 months. Thin, colorless light in the morning and spiders all over the house. The neighbors play American football on the television at odd hours, and Leah runs the taps, and I think about my mother more than is usual. The morning before her funeral, I'd taken 6 Nurofen together with a pill of cooking brandy, and the combination of the two has set off a curious Doppler effect, whereby sensations seemed to strike me out of order. The smell of food before I tasted it, the feeling of my glass in my hand long after the realization that had dropped it. The reception was held at my aunt's, as my mother's house was too far out to be practical, not to mention in partial disrepair. I remember very little of the event, though I know that at one point Leah took me outside onto the back porch and told me we ought to stay there a while. Yeah, so it seems like, Yeah, 2 months after she got back. Yeah, her mother died. Mm. Uh, I'm sorry, I remember saying, although in response to that, to what, I'm not sure, something, I remember saying, although in response to what, I'm not sure. Sometimes I just say these things. I don't really know why. I remember standing where I was and the light hitting me in pieces, first my face and then the back of my hands, my chest, the underside of my jaw. I remember the cold and looking down into my aunt's garden, and then across a banked slate wall into the garden beyond, where a man was burning waste with a can of kerosene held at shoulder height. I remember staring down into the smoke, an odd, dreadic thing, flames stark in the white afternoon. The man had piled leaves and cardboard boxes, barrels rotted out and green with mildew, a thick-bodied bulk of a bonfire, tapering up into a spindle which smoked and spat out ash. It had been easy to imagine, though. I knew it wasn't wise, a human form at the center of this conflagration. Quite easy to imagine the corporeal something taking shape amongst the ashes, barrels blurring into rounded shoulders, the toothless brooms and buckets shucking off their clarity and reforming as the possibilities of necks and heads and melting human faces. I want to go inside now, I remember saying to Leah, but she shook her head and said we could go round the front of the house and stand there for a while. If the bonfire smell. Around the front of the house and stand there for a while, if the bonfire smell was bothering me. Having fitted the new phone, I have no choice but to use it. So here is a different. We're back in at Leah's house, and Leah and Miri's house, so we're not in the funeral anymore. Yeah, having fitted the new phone, I have no. Remember, it's Miri. Remember, Miri went to buy a new landline phone. So now she replaced it in the flat. Having fitted the new phone, I have no choice but to use it. I programmed the center into the handset's automated dial function so that now I only have to key in a single digit to kickstart the day. In the mornings, I slice thin-skinned Mayor lemons into water and pretend of breakfast for Leah from only this. Place the glass on a tray and hope the offering doesn't come across as sarcastic. Cold water with lemon is one of the only things I have found she will reliably drink, though occasionally I have caught her spooning table salt into mixture and have taken the glass away. When she eats anything at all, she eats salted things, which makes me worry. Appears to crave olives and anchovies, like licks the blood that seeps from her gums in the early mornings. Some days I imagine her lunatic on salt water, vainly trying to slip oranges into her diet, crush raspberries with the flat of a knife, and imagine sneaking them into her toothpaste. When I was a child, my mother taught me about scurvy, and even since I have pictured it leering out at me with the prevalence of the common cold. I picture Leah's symptoms, convince myself that her bleeding and shedding might all be put down to a simple lack of vitamin C. Early symptoms, I read on my phone screen hidden under the covers like a teenager texting a crush, include weakness and tiredness, sore hands, arms, and legs without treatment, decreased red blood cells, gum disease, changes to hair, and bleeding from the skin may occur. Scurvy is the name of a disease when we eat too much salt, too much savory things and salty stuff. So here Leah seems to have those early symptoms of the disease. I look at Leah and try to imagine the conversation, me leaning across the table to tell her, darling, I think you have scurvy. And Leah nodding her head, looking up and saying, yes, I think I do. Thank goodness you pointed it out. But this conversation never happened because they don't talk. So she's imagining conversations with her. I'm falling behind on my work. I find it difficult to sit without sweating, without standing up again, convinced there is something on my chair. Overtired, sweat crescents yellowing the underarms of shirts. My inbox is scrambling over with inquiries. Clients scuttling to express their displeasure as fast as they can recognize a crisis. Please send reassurance that you have started work on the grant proposal. One client has started messaging upwards of 3 times a day. I eat canned ravioli and try to remember what it meant to be concerned about an unpleasant tone in an email. Somewhere in the flat, Leah is running the taps again. We have a fight about this several mornings later. Leah sitting at the kitchen table and looking at the toast I've set before her. At the orange I've placed beside it. At the kiwi fruit and raspberry jam. No, I don't want this, she says. And so I tell her, I don't want to pay my half of the water bill this month. And we go on from there. She behaves like a house guest, I tell her. Like a person who's blown into my home and sat down like she belongs. She says she doesn't know what to say to me. Say anything. I want to scream. Say, I knew what I signed up for when you went away. Say, you told me the deal. Said you gave me all the information. Say it. Say it was my choice to be okay with it. Say that it's not your fault you went away for so long. Say it was my choice to move into the spare room. Say it was my choice to come into the bathroom every morning when I know what it is that I'll find. I don't think, I say instead, that you're eating the right things. Is that it? She says to me, then abruptly takes up the orange and throws it against the wall. It hits the brickwork with the wet, cottony sound of an internal organ. I watch the orange roll across the floor and think about laughing. Picture some soft internal part of Leah skittling over the kitchen tiles and vanishing beneath the fridge. Now there is here an account of Leah's youth, so a different time. Miri, recalling the story. Leah worked at the aquarium as a teenager. It was a sort of dirty, glamorous history I loved about her. An image I wanted to roll around in. My Leah with her shag cut hair at 17, feeding dolphins in this wetsuit cut off at the knees. I never knew her at this age, of course, though I've seen pictures. She showed me a sleeve of them once, early on, passing a hand over her face when I laughed at her dyed black hair, her nose ring, and her over-tweezed eyebrows. I was just trying something, she said. My mum hated the hair dye, so I did it even though it looked terrible, you know. In one photograph, a teenage Leah crouches by a tall cylindrical tank containing what she identified to me as a giant Pacific octopus named Pamela. We were pals, she said, in a voice that I thought seemed to strive for offendedness. Did you know they taste with their skin? Octopuses, I mean. In the old days, I used to enjoy this. Leah's seemingly never-ending list of useless facts acquired from a teenagehood spent changing the water in clownfish tanks and encouraging children to handle spiny creatures in the touch pools. She told me a story once that I often thought about afterwards, replayed for myself like a favorite movie. Leah, aged 18, letting a girlfriend into the aquarium one night after hours, sharing vodka shaken up with supermarket lemonade, and kissing on the floor beside the open ocean tank in view of reeling schools of yellowfin tuna, of sardines and moon jellies and stingrays, of copper rockfish and hammerhead sharks. She had, so the story went, stuck intrepid hands down the girl's bootcut jeans and afterwards taken her into the octopus room to meet Pamela. Though on doing so, she had found the creature had died in her tank sometime in the late afternoon. When I returned to the story later, I would superimpose an 18-year-old me over the top of the girlfriend, scribbling her out and sketching my lines in a more permanent ink. In this edit version, we would kiss, 18-year-old Leah and me, and then afterwards she'd take me to the octopus room, wrap her fingers on the glass cylinder, and Mela wouldn't be dead. She would rise up out of some corner and shiver towards us, pulsing flecks of a parasol opening and closing. The mantle and suckers and the head like something primed to burst. She would feel her way across the side of the tank, and in the scene or dream or version, I would know, because of my astonishing ability to know such things, that she had intended to meet me, that for any other girlfriend she would have died, but that for me she had waited. I would splay my hand against the glass and imagine I felt the great gelatinous give of her body, the folds and spongy inner membranes, the secret place where her 3 hearts beat out bluish copper blood. All quite fantastical, of course. By the time I was 18, Pamela was dead, and I had yet to kiss a girl. So here, just to be clear, Miri is imagining herself being 18 and being this girl and being Leah's girlfriend, and not and imagining creating this whole new story of this of Pamela, this octopus, who wouldn't be dead in her version of the story, because Miri was different than all the other girls. So this octopus would have waited for her, and Leah wouldn't have had this sad experience, and yeah, it would all would have been perfect in Miri's ideal world. I got so depressed when she died, Leah told me once. It wasn't really my job to look after her, you know. I was just a volunteer. But sometimes when the senior staff were feeding her, they let me touch her. They opened the tank of the they opened the top of the tank, and she sort of boil up towards you. All these arms wrapping up around yours, all these suckers, and then she'd sort of hold you there, look at you. She didn't try to pull me into the water exactly, but it could be difficult to get her to detach until she was ready. She'd hold me there, my chest up against the edge of the tank, sort of bent over and staring down at her. And then she'd let me go. They said she liked me. I don't know if that was true, but it was nice. Leah had long been a martyr to gifts that scented octopus. Oh, sorry. Leah had long been a martyr to gifts that scented octopuses in some fashion. The same way that anyone would make the mistake of committing to an animal will receive chicken or elephant or dolphin-themed gifts every birthday or Christmas for the rest of their lives. So Leah was constantly writing notes to thank people for octopus jewelry and octopus trinket dishes and cake forks with octopus handles that were semi-impossible to hold. I had, for the most part, made a point of avoiding this trope, except once, on Leah's 30th birthday, when I gave her a sleeve of promotional postcards from the aquarium at which she once worked. It was something I'd found quite by chance on an eBay listing, a book of branded cards, at least 15 years old, each labeled the stars of our show, and showing images ranging from the aquarium's single giant sea turtle to the otter tank and the dolphins and the penguin exhibit. The last card, but one, showed a tangerine-colored octopus. Its left eye swiveled towards the camera, its tentacles thrown up above its head as though tumbling downwards through air rather than water. The printed label at the bottom left-hand corner of the card read, Pamela, giant Pacific octopus, estimated age between 3 and 4 years old. I had given the cards to Leah, and she had cried about them and kissed me. And I'm really only telling the story now because it makes me look good, and because Leah always took the postcard of Pamela with her on work trips after that. When we met, Leah was working in research and conservation for a facility that specialized in the protection of coastal and deep sea ecosystems. This was before the center, long before it even existed, in fact, which often surprises people. I think it has something to do with the name, the Center of Marine Inquiry, a blandness that implies longevity, a patrician sense of having always been there, of being a long-established institution, which of course it is not. As it was, Leah did not move to the center until many years after we met. Having worked the full span of her 20s for the same small operation. On an early date, she poured olive oil, dipped bread, told me a story about a company she'd once hoped to work for, which specialized in applying the physical adaptations of underwater species to industrial innovation. They had engineered a new type of door handle that mimicked the structure of shark skin and made it more difficult for germs and viruses to attack. Shark skin is basically made up of millions of tiny teeth, she said, pouring wine, talking with her mouth full. They are called dermal denticles. Isn't that great? Practically speaking, a shark skin is almost as likely to do you damage as its mouth is. It didn't really end up being my area, a more straight biology. But I still love the idea of finding a way to harness odd little things like that to do some kind of service. We ate Russian beef stew with dill and talked the way people do on early dates, extravagantly confessional, every statement an attempt at some self-defining truth. I'm the type of person who cries at movie. I'm the type of person who works better alone. After the restaurant, we drank dark and stormies at a bar unfamiliar to either of us, talked about favorite meals and favorite places. The night was wet, air close and flannel damp, reports of ball lightning hitting the power lines some half a mile from my home. I'm Catholic, I said at one point, so I believe in punishment, but not reward. When we kissed, first kiss, wet palm, tongues tickled with ginger, I thought about shark skin and pushed my hand into the space where Leah's shirt had pulled free from her waistband. The next morning, I woke too early, my bedroom window filled with sharp segments of light. I'm not sure what the sound is. At first. And then I am sure. And then it is Leah screaming. So it's a different time space. It is a Wednesday or possibly a Thursday, and I'm not awake except in the parts of me required to jackknife out of bed. The scream seems wrong at first, garbled up into something other. It takes me several moments to recognize the interference as Leah's sound machine, the screams half drowned by the swelling. The oozing, the sinking noise, like a mouth forced open and leaking something thick. It's dark, and I can't find the light switch. And the noise is louder in the corridor, louder still towards the barrier of Leah's bedroom door. I reflect in some faraway part of myself that every horror movie begins like this. No lights and a voice in the darkness, feet tangled in bedcloth, a knocking hand left aloft as the door swings back. I push the door, take in the room that used to belong to both of us. Leah is there, and the bed is soaking, and it takes me longer than it should do, even in darkness, to realize the water is coming from her. As I stand in the doorway, she screams and keeps on screaming, apparently unaware of my presence. The sound is only interrupted when her body contorts, convulses, and she vomits a shower of water across the bed. I'm not sure what happens after this, only that the screaming proves to have been almost entirely unconscious. As when I shake her awake, it stops, and she stares at me, mouth swollen with salt, and she doesn't seem to know me at all. So this is the end of this session, but it's also the end of the Twilight Zone. So remember that this book is divided in 5 zones, which are the different layers in the ocean. I made some research about this, and it corresponds to the different layers of the ocean. So It's something that I didn't know. And, you know, this is what amazing when you discover a book, when you read a book and that you learn new references and new knowledge about a certain topic, and here about the ocean more specifically. So this is the end of the Twilight Zone, and tomorrow we will start a new zone, which is the Midnight Zone. Yeah. So if you want to make more research to get to know more about the meaning of those different zones, then I encourage you to do so. I hope that you enjoyed this live reading, and as always, leave me any comments in the description below this video. If you have any questions or anything that you would like to share, whether you enjoyed this live reading and like the video as well, that would be great. Make sure to subscribe to the book club membership to attend the live workshop, the next two live workshops that are happening on Saturdays. Also remember that you can also purchase 3-part live workshop of Daisy Jones and the Six on my website. And that's it for me for today. I wish you a beautiful end of the day, and I will see you live tomorrow at 2 p.m. CET, Central European Time, so Paris time, for the live reading of session 5 of our Wives Under the Sea live reading. We will read pages 75 to 100. So I hope to see you there. Bye.